Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the Great Movie Ride podcast. I am, of course, Gaston, joined by my co-host Jerryofdom,
Hello.
and we are in part 4 of our Jurassic period with Jurassic World. Um, da 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 da. Uh, would you like to start with your previewing thoughts?
Um, it had been a while, so, and with every Jurassic Park movie, we've only been seeing it go down. I just really liked the third one, but in all movie quality, it went down. Um, and so it was interesting to see from that long time period to see what they were gonna do. And it's been a while since I watched it, as I mentioned. But I saw this movie opening weekend, so I was a lot younger then.
uh, Going in, when we started our Jurassic Park reviews, I knew that Jurassic World was my second favorite of the Jurassic films. So I was excited to see it again. It had been a bit for me as well. I didn't see it opening weekend, but I did see it in theaters. I remember I liked the new characters. I remember really being impressed by the effects. So all in all, I was very excited to watch it again. So with that being said, our light spoiler plot sum up. Determined to bring dinosaurs to the world once again, InGen creates a new park called Jurassic World on the same island of the original Jurassic Park. Wanting to draw in even more money, they create a genetic hybrid dinosaur. What could possibly go wrong?
Absolutely nothing, totally.
Yeah, the whole movie is about 10 seconds. They're like, look, new dinosaur, and then it ends. Because everything was
Yeah,
fine.
exactly.
A bold choice to have such a big cast for 10 seconds. Anyway,
They just spent so much money on all those people, and they weren't even.
so let's transition to our character discussion. And before we do, I did not know David Wallace was in this film. I saw
I
that. I
had
thought,
forgotten about
oh,
that.
I hadn't seen The Office back when the movie came out, so I did
When
not
it first
know.
came out, I hadn't, but
Yeah,
one
so
of the
I didn't
last
know.
times I watched it, I had watched The Office, so I was like, oh, hey. But
It's
other than that,
it's been that long for me because I watched The Office back in 2018, 2019. I haven't seen it
wait.
since then. Like I didn't know it was a what. Anyway, we're not actually going to talk about him because he's just a minor part in the proceedings of the day. I just wanted to mention that David Wallace. I'm now going to ramble on. Never mind, he's back.
Yeah, sorry. I had to close my door.
Sorry. So let's start with Owen Grady, who's portrayed by Chris Pratt, a Navy veteran and ethologist and a velociraptor expert and handler at Jurassic World. Would you like to start with Owen or should I start?
He's got a crazy resume already. Uh, uh, Anyone should hire this man if he applies for a job. That's all I'm gonna say. Um, I coming back to this movie. No, I still think he's like the best character in the film. He is my favorite. Um, and the way he does things and the way that he understands the situations they're in, it's very much like a this character isn't someone that's slouching around because you know, he was in the Navy before. He's military trained with a lot of things, and now he's been in Jurassic World for how long? Because it seems like it hasn't been brand new, but it's been going on for a bit of time at the point we're seeing the movie.
Yep. Well, before I give my opinion, just a little bit of background is that for everyone paying attention at home, Owen Grady is our first original protagonist since the first film. Since the first film, the main characters have been characters who were introduced in the first film, Malcolm and Grant. So this is our first original lead character, which is kind of a risk because Jurassic Park had never done that before. And to top it all off, none of the previous major players would be involved in the film either, which was also a first for the franchise. In Jurassic World, The Lost World, rather, you had Ian Malcolm and John Hammond. In 3, you had Grant and Ellie, and this time none of the major players would be in it. So, a lot of pressure to Chris Pratt and Owen Grady, and Owen is pretty great.
Yeah,
I would
he
say. Oh, go
is
ahead.
what makes this movie really, really good.
I would say he's my second favorite lead after Grant himself for the whole franchise. He's
Yeah.
really good. He's funny and cool, and Chris Pratt he just owns the role. I like this more than Star Lord for Chris Pratt.
Yeah.
Um,
I find when Chris Pratt does a more serious type character, they're a lot better.
mm,
He does good as Star-Lord, but whenever Star-Lord got really serious, his acting is just amazing.
he's a good actor. So let's talk about Claire Deering, who's portrayed by Bryce Dallas Howard, the Jurassic World operations manager, aunt to Zach and Gray Mitchell. And I get to start, and I will just lead off. She is my favorite female lead in the whole franchise. I'm sorry, Dr. Sattler. I gotta give it to Claire. Um, I really like her arc in this film. She starts off in a removed and unlikable place, but you get to see her develop and change in a very satisfying way as the film progresses. And Bryce Dallas Howard's performance is super strong. And she really brings the emotional weight to the film. It is through her eyes that a lot of the risk comes to the fore. Bring it in with you.
Claire Deering. She this watching this movie today, I watched it in like 3 segments because of timing. So it goes from like the first little bit to the starting of the problem, the whole problem to about the halfway point, and then the rest of the film. So separating all three probably didn't have the viewing as great as it could have been, but her character was very good. And she wasn't my favorite, but I do really like her character in this movie. And she does well at giving how a mediocre person would deal with this situation, basically. Because she's very much this average person, other than she's running Jurassic World. But it's like a businesswoman throwing into disaster movie.
Yeah, absolutely. So now let's talk about Vic Hoskins, who's portrayed by Vincent D'Onofrio, the head of InGen Security Operations, who wants to use velociraptors as military animals. Would you like to start?
Um, he, I actually thought his character was interesting because a lot of the points till the end of the movie are understandable. A lot of the things he's going for, they make sense because what he's trying to do with the velociraptors in throughout the movie is he's mentioning how military operations use an animal that's not going to cost men's lives. And yes, everyone's like, well, what if they turn on you and eat you? Well, it's a problem for another time. You're saving how many lives because you're not sending your own men out there? And I think he's a lot more of an understandable character till near the end.
I I um I quite like Vic Hoskins. He's our human villain, obviously, and he's one of the stronger human villains in the franchise. I put him up there with Ludlow and Nedry as far as human antagonists go, and I really like Donofrio's performance as
Yeah,
Hoskins. He's definitely a villain, but just like you were saying, it's easy to see his motivations, and it's not from this unrealistic place,
no.
saving people's lives. Um, yeah, very good. So now let's talk about Gray Mitchell, who's portrayed by Ty Simpkins, one of Claire's nephews and the younger brother of Zach. Uh, I get to start, so I will say that Gray is a decent kid character. I put him right below Eric Kirby in my Jurassic Park kid rankings.
Yeah.
Above Kelly, but below Eric Kirby. And Ty Simpkins, he's the kid from Iron Man 3, Harley Keener. He gives a fine performance. The writing lets him down a little bit in some areas, but just a little. He's a decent kid character.
Yeah. I didn't mind him too much. There was a few things where I miss Timmy,
I
or
think
Eric,
he's still the gold standard of kids in this franchise. It's Tim.
because I'm like I think the reason I really like comparing the two is because a lot of the aspects are around the same idea, parts falling apart and all these different things. But he just feels a little underwhelming, you know, and just kind of feels like he's just kind of there for the ride. The kids, I feel like, were inserted in this movie or supposed to feel like a more attachment to them, but to me, I didn't feel a strong attachment to them, and I wasn't like overly worried what would happen with
So now let's talk about Zach Mitchell, who's portrayed by Nick Robinson, one of Claire's nephews, the older brother of Gray. You get to start with Zach.
what a simp. He literally was so rude to his girlfriend at the very start, and then tries flirting with every girl he sees, and I'm like, man, I feel bad for his little brother. That's the one thing I do respect his little brother for. He would always try to not be the wingman for his brother and make fun of him in front of it, because I'm like, he deserves it. Uh, but the two dynamics, I like Zach, right, a lot more than Gray.
Yeah.
I think that his performance really may bring some interesting things to the table because Gray's dealing with things, but it's what Zach does which makes things more interesting, and you see them build them up.
Mhm. Yeah. Conversely to his brother, on my list, Zach goes right above Eric Kirby in my ranking, which is third place on my list. Mind you, there's a pretty big gap between him and Lex,
Yeah.
but it's still third place on my list. And he kind of shares Claire's arc, but it works well enough because you get to see him and his brother like they grow closer together. They start getting along, and that is a nice thing. And the performance is actually solid. He's written a little flat with not many lines, but his performance is solid enough.
I feel like both the kids were kind of the script didn't do them too well,
Yeah,
and that's why I don't feel this connection with them. But I did like Zach's role.
I feel like it was kind of like they had to finish story. It's like, but where's the kid characters? They have to have a kid character in a Jurassic Park film,
Mhm.
so they
Because
inserted
this
them.
movie's not based off a book at all, right?
No, neither was three, but three
Yeah.
really suffered. So
Yeah,
it's like,
but this one, it you could tell that they probably needed maybe a little in some source material, and that's why there's a lot of copy and paste. But they changed things, but it does feel like its own movie.
mm. So now let's talk about Barry, who is portrayed by Omar Sy. Owen's assistant who helps care for the Raptors. I get to start, and I like Barry. He's
Yep.
very much like Eddie Carr and Udesky in his role in the film. And he's not in it much. He's a supporting character. He has some nice lines, but what I really like is Omar Sy's delivery of the lines. With the French accent, has a nice little gravitas to everything he says. And he's returning for Dominion on the cast list, so go
Yeah,
Barry.
yeah. Rather than half the characters we get Fallen Kingdom. Mm. um, I enjoyed his character. He has a serious yet comedic tone to him where a lot of the characters, like the role that he's playing, are very much just comic relief or they're cracking one-liners or something. He was somewhat doing, but he felt very serious and like he's not joking around. He knows what's going on, and I think you know you really see that in the bit of the middle of the movie towards the end. When they go on the run, and he does things that make sense. He is trying his best to deal with the situation that he's put into because this isn't what he applied for, this isn't the job he's looking for.
Hmm.
But he does well to deal with the situation on it while still being an entertaining character, but still not being just comic relief.
Um, I get big like Roland Tempo and Aj vibes from Owen and Barry.
Mhm.
I like it. Um,
They don't get much together, but when they do, they're entertaining.
mhm. All right. So now let's talk about Dr. Henry Wu, who's portrayed by BD Wong, a geneticist who heads the team that created the dinosaurs for Jurassic World. Wong is the only actor in the film to reprise his role from any of the previous films, and I believe it is your start.
I really like what they've done with Wu and the newer stuff because a big he's very much the key to why all these movies happen. And it doesn't you don't really get that sense of it because he's only in the first one. and you
Mm-hmm.
don't see him afterwards. And then you see him in this one again, and you get this different vibe from him. You know, like there's been a big change, and you get more of that in Camp Cretaceous as well as in Fallen Kingdom. They're all interesting, and I really like what they've done with the character from just being this scientist in a lab to being the guy that's the head of all this, and he's the reason why it's happening now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they changed Wu's background. They like retconned him because before he was just a part of the team, and now he's put up as the guy. But it works fine because he was the only scientist who spoke in the first film. It works fine, and it was nice to see a familiar face, even if it was only for one scene 2 decades before. It
Yeah.
was still nice to see him, and he's given far more to do. And they set up some very interesting things that we'll talk about more on the next podcast. And if you
And he
check
looks
out
exactly the same age.
Camp Cretaceous, you'll see even more with Doctor Wu. So now let's talk about Simon Mesrani, who's portrayed by the late Irfan Khan, CEO of the Mesrani Corporation, the owner of Jurassic World. He was a friend of Hammond's before the latter's death. And I start, so I like Mesrani.
Yeah.
He has a fun way about him and some nice aspects to his character as well. To me, watching it, he is very much a what if Ludlow wasn't a villain. Is Mesrani. Same motives as Ludlow, but he's an actual human with compassion and empathy instead of a archetypical dumb villain. I like Mesrani.
Yeah. He makes this movie more he he adds this family taste to it kind of because he sees them all as they're not just numbers on a spreadsheet. They're not just animals. The people there aren't just numbers. He cares about how are the people doing? How are the animals doing? How are all these different aspects doing? And as you mentioned before, it makes him feel like an actual human.
Yeah, it's not
And
some
it
corporate.
also, yeah, corporate head that's annoying.
Yeah.
And he makes you actually think like this is a really, really rich man who hasn't lost his sense of taste of humanity.
Mm-hmm. And finally, let's talk about Lowry Crothers, who's portrayed by Jake Johnson. He's an employee in the park's control room. Um, would you like to start with Lowry?
He's like one of my favorite characters in this movie. He's not in it a lot, but I'm like, love this guy. I wish we got because you never see him leave. And I just hope that he got it okay. That's all I care about.
I'm
Um,
sure he did.
yeah. But for what he's in, you know, he adds this comic relief that is enjoyable and it doesn't feel stupid. Like still my favorite part when he's sitting there and Owen hits all of his dinosaurs off and he's like, "What?"
Mhm,
And it's like that's the most funny part in the whole movie to me. Or that other part towards the end with him.
mhm. Yeah, he's a minor character in the end, but he's a lot of fun. He's got some great one-liners, and he does more than you might expect.
Yeah.
Upon repeat watching, he does a little bit more than you might expect. And just for the record, Jake Johnson portrays him. That's Peter B. Parker from Into the Spider-Verse is Lowry Crothers. So I thought that was pretty
Oh,
cruel. Not cruel,
oh
cool.
yeah.
Yeah, Peter B.
Now I
Parker.
connect the voices.
Yeah. All right, so let's transition to the effects and cinematography. And the effects in this film are gorgeous.
Oh yeah. You can tell
Franchise
a huge
best.
difference.
Franchise best up to this point. Beautiful. The practical effects is far less in this one, but the CGI has come a long way since the 90s and early 2000s, so it
Oh yeah.
compensates for it very well. Couple of scenes I want to shout out. The Raptors, they look great. Rexy looks great. And of course, the Indominus as well. More on him later.
I think there's only one part that caught my eye and made me be like, not that great, is when the Indom first gets out
Mm.
and he throws that car away. He looks strange. He very much looks like he's been photoshopped into it.
Mm.
I feel like the CGI in that little part was a little like rough on my eyes. I
Okay.
was like, hmm. But other than that, I thought amazing job. You know,
And the cinematography continues to be strong with this franchise, and there's some truly special shots in this film.
they
Um,
really made this movie feel like a horror film at times.
mhm. A couple of the shots that I really like, the framing of the Indominus emerging from the trees towards the end, the Mosasaurus feeding scene, the Pteranodons flying in, like with that wide angle, but then also when Hoskins goes on the roof and is looking at the little main area with the Pteranodons was a really cool shot. The Rexy arriving on the scene, and without saying any spoilers, that's why we'll talk about it more later, but also the final shot of the film. I absolutely adore. So much good cinematography in this one.
Okay. This movie, you can really tell that there's been this time jump, and very much all the cinematography makes this movie just really stand out. Um, I really can't say it's a great scene, but the scene where they first interact with the not first after it's gone out and containment goes after it,
Hmm.
that scene, the way it frames and everything, because they switch to the cameras on the people and everything, it just makes it feel terrifying. Like this is what it feels to have a dinosaur thrown right in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
And then that raptor scene in that too.
Mm-hmm.
Those two are like, oh,
Yeah, yeah. So let's transition to the writing and score. And the writing is solid. Nothing crazy, but nothing terrible. The chemistry between the characters is very strong throughout, and all of the arcs for characters who have arcs play out really well.
yeah.
My one complaint actually is leveled at Owen. He does not have a character arc. I don't hold it against him. He's still great, but no character arc, so no development. So I feel like the writing could have done more for him. But I still really like Owen. It's just
I think
he
they
has
were
no arc.
trying to make this like character arc with the aunt and the kids, and it just
And I
made
think that
him
one
not
went
look at
fine.
Owen.
Yeah, I think
I
that
think
arc
it
was
did
fine.
too, but I feel like they focused too much on that, and they didn't do anything for Owen towards it.
Yeah, Owen had no arc, and I'll have to rewatch when we do the next one to see if he gets an arc in the sequel or not.
I think he does.
I don't know. We'll see.
But either way, he's still a very interesting character.
Yeah, I've got no complaints.
From and just watching the trailers of Dominion, like he looks like he'll be really, really good in that.
Mm. The score is good. It
Yeah.
reuses some of the classic John Williams notes, and
Was it
also
John Williams?
the original film was, yes, but not this one.
Ah,
But there's also some powerful new works that are really good. Um, the Jurassic World theme itself stands out in my mind. So it works well because it like balances this nostalgia trip with like the notes of the original theme with a solid score, like the action score and everything. It's a solid score. It's not as good as the original, but it's better than anything else that's not John Williams in this
yeah.
franchise. So it's nothing to sneeze at. It's solid work.
No. I think my favorite score is with the wreck scene, because it mixes in like you can hear like the lower area of the notes of the music is the old Jurassic Park theme while still tying in the new one at the same time, and they flow so well together.
Mm-hmm. All right, time to head in to the heavy spoilers. Warning, warning, heavy spoilers ahead. Here we go. Brothers Zack and Gray Mitchell visit Jurassic World, a dinosaur themed park on Isla Nublar, of which their Aunt Claire Deering is the operations manager. Claire assigns her assistant Zara as the boys' guide, but they evade her and explore on their own. Boom.
Wow.
Summarize the
That
first 20 minutes in 2 sentences.
that opening scene where it shows the Indominus and the egg, and it switches to the crow in the
Mm.
movie theater, I jumped a little when it switched to the crow because you're sitting in like this is a big IMAX theater too.
Mm,
And it was like when it was still a loud theater, because they've definitely toned down the sounds at theaters now. When it was louder, and it just like oh, and it's like as it jumps around is like really loud. I'm like, oh.
mm. um, this is one complaint I definitely have about the film is I summarized the first 20 minutes in two sentences and I didn't leave anything out.
No.
That's it takes a bit to get into it.
Like when I the three segments, the first one, like I only got to like 36 minutes, and I just felt so bored.
Yeah, like see that's the difference. That's what the first one managed to do so well. Is the first one takes a long time to get into it too, but what's happening in it is interesting.
Yeah,
With fascinating character work and the slow reveal of things, it's really well done. This one is not as good in that opening bit. Well, I mean, to be frank, this one's not as good, period. But
yeah.
the opening's a bit more drawn out than it should be.
Hmm.
Um, Elsewhere on the island, Navy veteran and ethologist Owen Grady has been training a quartet of velociraptors composed of Blue, Delta, Echo, and Charlie, and researching their intelligence. Based on the raptor's ability to follow commands, head of InGen Security Vic Hoskins believes that the animals can be weaponized, an idea Owen and his assistant Barry vehemently oppose. This sequence is pretty cool with the
Yeah,
raptor training and feeding.
yeah.
I like when the intern gets knocked
Hmm.
in, and after Owen pulls him out, you a new kid? Yeah. Ever wonder why there was a job opening? Yeah.
Really, with some strong words there, and he's like, "Oh,
hmm
all right."
that revelation of oh
But I like how the Raptors in this movie feel different than you've experienced Raptors in other ways because all the other times Raptors were untrained, they weren't given anything. It was just like they are Raptors, and then there's the thing. It's like we can attack the Raptors, but other than that,
hmm.
these Raptors felt a lot different. They felt new.
Yeah. For better or for worse, like I'm okay to a degree with the controlling the Raptors and all that. But at the same time, I feel like it's a bit of a disservice to the terror that the Raptors used to provide. That's been
Yeah,
steadily lessening since the first film. Like
yeah,
it was slightly less in the Lost World, significantly less in Jurassic Park 3,
yeah.
and that's like that's a disservice to them in my opinion.
These ones still felt scary at when certain things go and happen.
Well, when we get
But
there, I feel much better about it than I do
yeah,
up until that point.
yeah.
It's at least it was handled well. While I disagree with
Mhm.
the choice, it was handled well.
Yeah.
All right. Prior to the opening of its latest attraction, Claire and park owner Simon Mesrani inspected the new attraction, the Indominus Rex, a transgenic dinosaur created by geneticist Dr. Henry Wu. Masrani tasks Owen with evaluating the enclosure's security. I'm going to pause there for a moment just to say that I absolutely love Masrani doing the breakdown of the Indominus.
Yeah.
This will give the parents nightmares. That line specifically.
You know what I noticed is that for the first bit of the movie, anytime that they showed the Indominus until it's out and Asset goes after it, they never give a full shot of it.
Oh yeah, it's classic monster movie thing. You never want to reveal it too early. And they do it well. They build up the suspense of it.
I feel like they could have done it even more and it would have worked.
Oh
But
yeah.
I work for what they did, it still very much worked.
hmm um, Owen warns Claire that the Indominus lacks social skills, making it dangerous and unpredictable. Uh, while at the enclosure, they fail to spot the Indominus, so Owen, while investigating, sees claw marks up the wall, indicating that
It,
the Indominus has escaped.
this was super interesting to me. Because
Mm,
I'm like, they've touched on dinosaurs having that really good intelligence, and because it's a hybrid, you're throwing a lot of different chemicals in it. This thing's super smart.
mm-hmm.
And I feel like if it hadn't been only in a cage and hadn't been getting all these things for the first time, this thing would have been a monster of a threat.
Mm-hmm.
Like, having a trained like not trained, but like an Indominus that's used to things, and
Mm-hmm.
you release it, it knows what to do.
Yeah. Owen and two park workers enter the enclosure, but upon looking for the Adonis's tag, it is revealed that it is still in the cage with everybody, despite his heat signature not showing up. So it appears Owen survives, but it devours the two other men before escaping deeper into the island's interior. Realizing that this is a highly vicious and highly intelligent super predator, Owen advises Mesrani to have the Indominus destroyed. But to protect the company's investment, Mesrani dispatches a specialized unit to subdue it with non-lethal weaponry, so it can be safely returned to its paddock. I really like the line that he has where he says, "Oh, I just had it and I lost it." That thing is just starting to figure out where it belongs on the food chain, and I don't think you want it to figure that out.
That's what, yeah. When Owen said that,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm like, this is very much true.
Mm-hmm.
The whole part with Owen throughout it coming out and to when acid containment deals with it is very interesting because he's very much seeing all the signs of bad that's happening, and everyone else is like, but money, or we don't want to. This
Mm-hmm.
thing just ate people.
Mm-hmm.
This is a problem.
Yeah. So ACU can handle it, they say, but it's revealed that it tore its tracker out. And how did it know to do that? Because it's hyper intelligent. And but then it emerges from the trees because it can camouflage and it slaughters the ACU, forcing Claire to order the evacuation of the island's northern sector. And Masrani ponders Owen's warning and goes to confront Dr. Wu about what he created. I,
This scene with the AC unit, I think the scene that stands out the most, like scary, like this is a serious movie, is when the Indominus eats the person and it comes through the leaves.
mm-hmm.
Because you don't technically, like, there's blood drops. You're not clearly seeing the blood. You're seeing the ruffle of the leaves and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it does it so well to just make it like your spine shudder. You're
Yep.
like, bruh. And just the way how everyone, it's just so. The one problem I do have is that one AC unit that stands there and just shoots straight into the Indominus as it just runs straight at him and then swallows him. I'm like, dude, I would start not walking towards it. And
Well, that I can understand because when you're afraid, sometimes your muscles seize up and you're just
no.
frozen in
But he
fear.
started walking towards it. I'm like, what are you doing? Walk backwards.
Other way.
I'm
Uh,
not actually upset about that. It's just a funny thing.
Meanwhile, while all this fun stuff is happening, Zack and Gray are on one of the park's attractions of Gyrosphere and enter a restricted area. The Indominus, of course, arrives and destroys the vehicle and kills an Ankylosaurus, but the boys narrowly escape him. They run away and manage to outrun it, and find the ruins of the original Jurassic Park Visitor Center from the first film, and they set about to repair an old Jeep Wrangler to head back to Jurassic World's like resort area.
I really like this thing. And thank goodness it's not bumpy that does. Um, but this I thought it was hilarious to have Jimmy Fallon as the guy that's describing it. He's just fumbling around like a lot of people don't like Jimmy Fallon, but like that's pretty funny.
I don't understand why people don't. I like Jimmy Fallon.
Yeah, he's a funny guy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so it was nice seeing that little cameo. Um, and the way it just set up things, and when they go into the restricted area, they're like, "There's four dinosaurs, there's five," and it's the realization of it's right behind them was like that's an interesting scene.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes sense because in Jurassic Park 3, you very much complained about like the Spinosaurus just standing there and the Velociraptor just standing there. But for the Indominus, it's never seen this before. It doesn't know what the heck's going on. It's
It's
like, "Huh?"
it's also not just standing there. If you watch the reflection, it's creeping closer. It's hunting.
Yeah.
So I have no complaint about that because he's not just
No.
standing there. He's hunting. He's getting
He's trying
closer.
to figure out what the heck he's looking at.
Yeah, he's never seen these things. Um, I I have actually a complaint about the visitor center and the original Jurassic Park.
Yep.
And it's not a huge complaint. It's just that it really served no purpose other than just to nostalgia bait people.
Yep.
Because like they're there to do something that could have been done anywhere else. Like yes, they find a Jeep there and repair it. They could have found any Jeep from Jurassic World anywhere and did it. It
Yep.
was just for nostalgia bait that they went there. Now, I love seeing it again. Cool set,
Yeah.
really cool. But it didn't need to happen, so it's like a plot inconsistency to me because there's easier ways to have this occur
Yeah.
than what they claim to have worked.
Mm-hmm. I
Uh,
see what you're saying. And I get that. And it's like
it's a
a
minor
few
thing.
little things when they show up there. I'm like, there was a fountain here, as you mentioned before. There was a few things I'm like, there should be a tree in the middle,
Hmm.
you know. But other than that, like I didn't mind the nostalgia feel when they're wandering through it. I'm like, this is cool little
It's
callback.
a nice nostalgic moment, but it's just eh, not as executed. Like make it that they had to be there, and I would have zero complaint.
Well, it's
But
more like they're wandering through the jungle and trying to figure where to go, and then they run upon.
yeah, but that's also like in much the same way. Could you imagine Disney building a theme park right near one of theirs? So say Disney abandons Epcot, right? And then they build Epcot 2 on the same plot of land. Would they really not go and clear out Epcot and all like the materials, the Jeeps, the buildings? That's a lot of material that can be repurposed if you get to it
Yeah.
before the jungle overtakes it.
I think the thing was is that Jurassic Park was like this secret thing. It wasn't like it was well known after everything got out and everything,
Hmm.
but it wasn't like a ton of people knew where it was on the island or other things, and they
Yeah, I
just
know.
never ran upon
It's just. Could you imagine Disney just ignoring their old thing
it. Yeah.
instead of tearing it
But I
down?
mean, everyone evacuated. It was a restricted island, and people weren't supposed to go there.
It doesn't change my point.
So, I mean,
Um, so, Claire and Owen set out to search for the boys and have an encounter with the Indominus Rex also at the visitor center. This is one thing that was kind of like they went a little too far in utilizing the Indominus for a jump scare. Is he's right beside them and then he pulls back just to do the haha gotcha from above. And it's a classic movie thing to have that happen where the killer like oh the killer's gone and then surprise he's not gone. But it's like again it's an animal.
yeah.
I get why it's an effective jump scare, but it works better with like human killers than dinosaurs.
Yeah.
No, I can
Um,
forgive a lot more because the Indominus is a wild card, but it still felt just a little too human.
I think the one funny scene is that when the Jeep gets thrown towards them, is it looks like Chris Pratt doesn't know what he's doing. Because he's about to run the other direction, and then all of a sudden it looks like someone was like, over here. Because he like just whips and looks straight at the camera for a quick second, then remembers, nope. And then the car like almost hits him.
Oh man. um, so Mesrani and two of InGen security go on to the helicopter to hunt down the Indominus as it's charging into the park's aviary. And well, as it breaks into the aviary, the pteranodons flee from the massive predator that just charged in. So they all scatter all over the place, and they kill the soldiers with Mesrani, and eventually cause his helicopter to crash, killing him as well. He deserved better. Um, and then the pteranodons converge onto the resort and attack. It was 20,000 people, I think they said.
I think so.
We'll go with it. They attack the 20,000 people. Um, and and the one of the most baffling things that I will complain about in a minute, they grab Zara, remember Claire's assistant who's supposed to be
Yeah.
babysitting the kids, and bully her for a while, throw her into the Mosasaur lagoon, and then the Mosasaur eats the Pteranodon and Zara. And it just Jurassic Park always had like the epic deaths were saved for characters that matter, right?
Yeah.
Like like Eddie Carr getting torn in two by the T-Rexes. Carter didn't get torn in two by T-Rex, he got stepped on by one. The
Yeah.
epic deaths are reserved for characters who matter. Zara has 10 lines, if that. 5 minutes of screen time, if that. And gets one of the most CG intense deaths there is in the whole film.
There wasn't a lot of deaths of main characters. They
Not a
usually,
ton, no. But
I think if they had done that, then sure. But there's no really others. There's two other significant deaths.
is there even
Um,
two other significant deaths? I think there's just one. After
well,
Mesrani,
there's
there's one more.
yeah,
Like that's it.
yeah.
This one doesn't have a high body count.
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
it does,
This
but it doesn't.
yeah. I honestly I never liked her character and I found her really annoying through the film. It's kind of funny to just see you get absolutely bullied on.
See, I don't think she's in enough for me to really have an opinion on her. I just don't care. As I move my Robert Muldoon to the other side of my desk. Um, it's just, meh. I complain about it because it just seems like have that death happen to like look at character list. One of the
Owen.
kids or Barry or even Lowry, just because that was an intense death that could have been a real gut punch, but instead at least we were like, oh, that was kind of brutal for her.
Yeah.
Or
If
maybe
you're
she
gonna
had cut scenes, I don't
everyone would
know.
have just jaw dropped. They would like, they just killed the kid.
Maybe she had cut sequences, I don't know, but it doesn't add up to me. Um, Gray and Zach then find Owen and Claire at the resort as armed personnel shoot down pterosaurs. There's that awesome scene of Owen and all the guards lined
Yeah.
up there firing. And then when one tackles Owen, Claire takes his gun and just keeps shooting it until it's
The kid's
done.
kind of like,
Is that it, Claire? I do like Owen and Claire's relationship a lot.
yeah.
So with Owen missing for the last few hours and Mesrani's death, Hoskins assumes command and orders that the Raptors be deployed as military units to track the Indominus. Owen reluctantly complies and goes to spearhead the assault of the Raptors, but I love how that's worded reluctantly complies, but what he did was clock Hoskins in the face.
Yeah.
um, but I like how Hoskins didn't take it personally. Like, it was definitely intended to be personal, but he's very much like, look, people are dying.
Yeah.
And like,
It's
you
all
understand
pretty
him.
great. Yeah. It was very interesting the way they did it. Because you never have seen this much like human person. What's the word? Anyways, you get what I'm trying to aim at for a villain in Jurassic Park film. They
Mhm.
mostly just care about money.
Yeah. And this guy, he's like legitimately concerned about human lives.
Yeah.
Like, is he wrong? Not really. Is he extreme? Yes. But I feel like he's only the villain because every main character disagrees with him.
Yeah.
Now, to be fair, Hoskins is a dirtbag. Like, he is happy that people are in danger so his project can get approved. But he's still very much trying to save lives at the same time. Like, he's definitely a
Yeah.
villain, but is he wrong?
Yeah.
Um, so, now a pretty cool sequence of Owen on a motorcycle with the four raptors flanking him. Everything cameraed up as they go to hunt down the Indominus. Um,
And you know what I'll say is, you know those memes, it's like, you'll never be as cool as, and it's like, Owen Grady running with a pack of rabbits, or
yeah.
riding a motorcycle. Like, that is just like the ultimate alpha move. This dude looks like the biggest Chad that could just steal your girl and you'd be okay with it.
Yeah, and it's like, again, same complaint about the Raptors being tameable like that, but it's a cool scene. And
Yeah.
Barry's involved too. He gets on an ATV and follows as well as the what's left of ACU and InGen security all going. Um, and upon finding the Indominus, the dinosaurs begin communicating amongst themselves. Where Owen has this holy S moment where he's like, "Oh boy, they're talking to each other because they used Raptor DNA in the Indominus." And then one of my favorite shots is as the Raptors turn and look at the humans, and like the Indominus looks as well. It raises its head, and it's that moment of oh slag.
Oh boy, we're done.
I do like that shot a lot. So with a new alpha in play with the Indominus, um, the pack's new alpha has them attack. The troops open fire on the Indominus, not realizing what's about to happen with the Raptors, and almost kill the Indominus. It took
Yeah.
heavy damage, but it escapes. The Raptors then turn on everyone and kill most of the people, which
That was
is
such a
that's a
horror scene.
horror movie scene for sure. With the first person camera angle and the all over the place. Oh man, it is a frightful sequence.
It's like when you're playing a horror game and then when your friends just start dropping.
Mm-hmm. Lunch lady. Um, go check out the Gmod squad on YouTube. Just search Gmod squad lunch lady, and you'll see what we're talking about.
It's like SCP
The
containment.
containment breach, yes. Also on Gmod squad on YouTube.
Ah,
So, um, in the chaos, Charlie is killed by a bazooka. What a way to
uh,
go. Um,
we salute you, soldier.
and Blue tries to get Barry, who dives into a log. And it's just a fun nod that I imagine it was written this way on purpose. Is in the original book, Robert Muldoon survives the raptor attack by diving into a pipe,
Hmm.
and much the same way as it's depicted in the film. So I gotta figure it was a nod to
Yeah,
that, to have him do that. And Owen managed to lead Blue away, and Barry does survive despite not showing up again. He is, with the
yeah.
confirmation of his appearance in the next one, he is alive.
No, Barry shows up at the very end of the movie.
Oh, that's right too in the epilogue.
Yeah.
Never mind. Never
We
mind.
have no idea how he got there, but he made
He's
it into the jungle.
good. um. So while this is happening, Hoskins evacuates Wu and the dinosaur embryos from the island to protect Wu's research. There's a cool chase sequence with the Jeep and the Raptors coming where Claire drives the kids to safety. They return to the main Jurassic World Visitor Center, and Owen, Claire, and the boys, they find Hoskins at the lab securing the embryos. And Hoskins goes on his big speech about how things will have to move forward, and then Delta bursts into the room and kills him.
That was such a crazy scene, especially for me, because I was a lot younger then, and I'm like, oh,
I
oh.
I just really like how that cuts off his monologue.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure it's like, you see, there will be a time, and then boom, Raptor.
And he's like, oh, it's all right. We're on the same
We're on the
side.
same side.
No harm
Chomp.
for you, sir.
Yep. So that was that happens. Owen then reestablishes his bond with the three surviving Raptors, which is Blue, Delta, and Echo. Before the Indominus reappears. Blue calls the Raptors to arms as the Beta, and they attack the hybrid. But
Gets rocked immediately.
Blue is ejected into a wall and drops, not moving. Delta gets launched into a barbecue. Everyone ever wonder what Raptor flambe tastes like? And then
No.
and Echo got
I think
it
Echo
wasn't
got thrown into a light.
it wasn't eaten, but like got into the mouth and like bit down on and then launched somewhere, but
Yeah,
didn't
I
get
think it
eaten.
got into a light and like electrocuted.
Mm.
Could be wrong.
Surprisingly, I actually don't remember what happened to Echo.
Yeah.
So Gray has his only interesting line, or I guess one liner, where we need more teeth. So Claire goes and unleashes Rexy, which is the original T Rex from Jurassic Park 1.
Wait, you got the name wrong. It's not Owen that says we need more teeth. It's the kid.
I didn't say Gray, I said Owen.
Yeah.
Well, I meant Gray. So Claire goes and releases the T-Rex from its paddock and runs away from it in high heels. She spent this whole movie in high heels.
I don't know how.
I it's a huge complaint people level at it. And maybe it's just because I'm a guy, but it doesn't bother me that much. Like, I guess it would be hard to run in high heels, but that doesn't mean it's
I've ran
impossible.
in high heels, and I've done it, so
I get that it's hard,
don't
but I
ask
don't think
why.
it's
I just have.
impossible. Well, I get that it's hard, but I don't think it's impossible. I'm pretty sure I've seen people do it.
I got into a challenge. Like, you can't run in high heels. I'm like, watch me, and I did it. And then
Hmm.
I'm like, all right, never mind.
It's like, it would be tricky, but it's not impossible.
Yeah.
Um, so, the Rex comes in, Rexy from JP1 when dinosaurs ruled the Earth, and enters combat with the Indominus, but not before smashing the Spinosaurus skeleton, as a little nod to the fans who were PO'd that the Spino killed the baby Rex. Very much smashed that skeleton very clearly. Because the T Rex is the face of Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
The Indominus quickly gains the advantage over the T Rex until Blue wakes up and joins the battle. Deus Ex Blue. And the duo fight the Indominus and end up backing it up to the edge of the lagoon where the hungry Mosasaurus jumps up and drags it into the water. A watery grave for the genetic hybrid. The survivors are then evacuated, and the island is abandoned once again. Zach and Ray are reunited with their parents, and Owen and Claire decide to stay together. The film ends on a shot that I very much like. The T-Rex walking onto the helicopter pad and bellowing out over its new domain. Da-dum!
Yeah.
That fight scene, like, pretty
That was a
cool.
really good fight
It's
scene.
pretty cool.
Because dinosaur fights weren't really a thing till the third one. And the third one was the third one.
Mm-hmm.
And this one had some good dinosaurs.
Some good dino on dino action.
Yeah.
So let's go to our favorite and least favorite scene. What is your favorite scene in Jurassic World?
I think my favorite scene is on. I think it's the Raptor scene near the end where the Raptors and the Indom and then
Mm.
just absolutely terrible.
Mine is Rexy and Blue versus the Indominus. Just absolutely epic.
Yeah.
I'm usually one who'd be like, "Oh, that was kind of
Cheesy.
not Jurassic Park, but it was really well animated and really well done."
Yep.
Um, what is your least favorite scene?
I think my least favorite probably the opening segment.
The opening bit. Mine is the old park scene. It's really cool. It's nostalgic, but like I said before, it serves no purpose other than just show it off, integrate into the story better. And I think I like it less than the boring opening because it's something that meant so much.
Yeah.
Overall rating, what do you give Jurassic World?
I give it an 85.
And I give it 85.
Hey,
Yeah,
nice.
same rating. This is significantly better than The Lost World in Jurassic Park 3, and significantly worse than Jurassic Park 1, but we knew that going into it. It
Yeah.
performed at expectations. For me, it was expectations. Um, Next time on the Great
Oh,
Movie
God.
Ride podcast, we got an interesting one. We're going to be looking at Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, which I've only seen once. I saw it in theaters. That came
I've
out in
only seen it once.
2018?
It might have.
It was either 2018 or 2019, but I think it was 2018.
I think it was 2018.
So
Let me
I
check.
went to see it in theaters, and I wasn't a fan.
No, I did as well. I was not a fan either. It's 2018.
So this will be very interesting to see if we like it more or less than what has come before. So make sure you stay tuned next time for our review of Fallen Kingdom, and then after Fallen Kingdom, we'll be seeing Dominion. and
Yeah.
giving you a review on a new movie for the first time since Encanto. So, like, 5 episodes ago, which is 10 weeks.
Yeah.
So, look forward to that stuff. And with all of that being said, a good film. I've been Gaston,
I've been Jerryofdom.
and we'll see you in the movies. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye bye.